Today, we are going to take a look at the Paladin class. We're going to do a deep dive into what the Player's Handbook tells us about Paladins. We're going to look at how they run mechanically. And most importantly, I'm going to provide you with a number of questions that you can ask yourself to really bring the role play of your Paladin to the fore. But first of all, I want to take you through what a Paladin is, how they work mechanically, because those things are what are going to feed the questions that we ask ourselves and very much determine the questions that are important to make your Paladin stand out at the table in your roleplay, not just in combat. So first of all, what is a Paladin? A Paladin is a sworn protector. They tend to take sacred oaths to stand against annihilation and corruption. They also have oaths of power, and their oaths are more than just simply that promise that they make. It is actually the source of the divine strength and power that paladins receive. They have varied origins. Again, the oath is very important. They might swear these oaths in different situations. They may have gone to a temple of a god and sworn this oath at the altar. They may have gone to a sacred location in the wilderness and sworn this oath before the natural spirits that reside there. Or perhaps in a moment of desperation with no one but the dead as witnesses. Or perhaps simply pleading with their deity of choice that if you help me do this, I will pledge myself to you for the rest of my life. Paladins are warriors with divine might. They are masters of combat, trained in weapons and armor. But they are not just simply defined by their martial skill, because as we mentioned, there are other things that they are able to tap into. And in that regard, they are more than fighters. They're more than warriors, because it is their divine magic that is their true strength. They have the ability with their divine powers to heal the wounded, smite their foes, and put that power to use to defend the helpless, for example. So what is the calling of a paladin? They are adventurers by nature, but paladins perhaps more so than some of the other classes because they tend not to stay in one place for very long. They'll often fight on the front lines of this cosmic struggle against annihilation, whether that be from evil gods, from demons, or maybe something from the far realm, something completely alien to mortal races. But it is a rare path to follow. Paladins are rare. Even in a world with many warriors, true paladins are quite few and far between. These are the fighters that have been gifted with divine power in order to carry out the will of the gods. And making an oath is a life-changing vow. Once they have made that oath and they have been called upon by their deity and gifted with this divine power, a paladin generally abandons their old life to take up arms and magic in order to fulfill their deity's wishes. So that's what the Player's Handbook tells us about paladins. Now let's look at how these narrative ideas are put into practice in the mechanics of the class. So when you're playing the game, what benefits do you get? What does it mean to be a paladin when you're rolling dice? First of all, the core paladin traits. Strength and charisma are going to be your primary abilities. Strength, obviously, for hitting things and being that warrior, and charisma to lead you into that route of being able to provide support for your party and also leaning into those divine gifts that you have. As a paladin, you have a hit point dice of a D10 per paladin level. This hit point dice is going to determine how many hit points you have as you level up, and also as a secondary mechanic, they're going to lean into how much you can heal in a given day without having to go to bed, essentially. You will be proficient in wisdom and charisma saving throws, and you also get to choose proficiency in either athletics, insight, intimidation, medicine, persuasion, or religion. You get to choose 2 of those. You will also be proficient in both simple and martial weapons, and armor training in all types of armor, essentially. When you create a paladin, you get to choose your equipment. You can either choose the kind of pre-put together package of chainmail, a shield, a longsword, 6 javelins, a holy symbol, and a priest pack, and 9 gold pieces. Or if you prefer, you can simply take 150 gold pieces and select your own equipment. But that kind of pre-built equipment is there if you want to create a character nice and quick. So I'm going to do a rundown now of all the individual class features. This isn't going to go into heavy detail. If you did want to check out the exact rulings on how they work, you can check that out in the Player's Handbook, which you can find a link to, an Amazon link to, with an affiliate link in the comments below, or you can just check out the free rules on D&D Beyond. So at level 1, you gain a few features. These are like the baseline features that you get as a paladin. First of all, you get Lay on Hands, which is a pool of healing power, which is 5 times your paladin level. So when you're creating your paladin, this will start off at 5 points of healing that you can provide. You can heal yourself or you can heal somebody else. You can also use 5 hit points from that pool to remove the poisoned condition from somebody. The poison condition imposes disadvantage on ability checks for anyone that has it. An annoying thing to have, but if you just spend 5 hit points, you can just remove that from somebody as well. You also gain access to spell casting, which you would cast your spells through prayer and meditation, invoking the power of your god as you smite your enemies. And you can prepare only a limited number of paladin spells. That changes depending on your level. Charisma is your spell casting ability. As I mentioned, charisma is important when you're creating your character to put it at a high level, because that's what you're going to be relying on when you're casting your spells. Rather than using material components, you can use a holy symbol instead as your spell casting focus, provided that you have it in your hand. You also gain weapon mastery, which a lot of the more martial arts based classes have. This allows you to gain the weapon mastery properties of 2 chosen weapons. By using those weapons, you unlock a few extra abilities, and they're in the Player's Handbook. You can change your weapon choices after a long rest. At level 2, you gain a fighting style, and this comes in the form of a fighting style feat. The one that they suggest in the Player's Handbook is the Blessed Warrior option, which gives you the ability to learn 2 cleric cantrips. But of course, you can choose a different fighting style feat if you would prefer. Also at level 2, you gain Paladin Smite, which means you always have the Divine Smite spell prepared, which allows you to do extra damage when you hit a creature, and you can use it once per long rest without using a spell slot as well. So even if you run out of spell slots, this is something that you can do at least once per day. Then at level 3, you unlock the Channel Divinity feature, which allows you to tap into divine power for various special effects. As a core paladin feature, the special effects you get for Channel Divinity is your Divine Sense, which allows you to detect celestials, fiends, and undead nearby. And that's something that you can use twice per long rest. But once you hit level 11, that will increase the number of times you can use Channel Divinity. Then at level 3, you gain your Paladin subclass. This is where you get to choose your oath. In the 2024 Player's Handbook, the options are Devotion, Glory, Ancients, or Vengeance oaths. Again, you'll find those in the Player's Handbook, and I'll probably cover those in more detail in a later video. But for now, if you wanted to check those out, do so in the Player's Handbook. As part of your subclass, you're going to gain additional features at level 3, which will be the level that you choose your subclass, and also at level 7, 15, and 20. And those features will be different depending on which oath you choose for your paladin to take. Then at level 4, you gain an ability score improvement, also known as an ASI, which allows you to increase your ability scores by 2, or you get to take a feat instead of increasing your ability scores. And you also get to do this again at level 8, 12, and 16. Then at level 5, you get to attack twice when you use the attack action. Nice and simple, but very effective. And also at level 5, you gain the Faithful Steed feature, which means that you always have the Find Steed prepared. So if you have fantasies of your paladin riding around on a horse, your Find Steed spell is prepared every day, and you get to use it once without using a spell slot as well. So even if you've run out of spell slots, you can at least make sure that you have a steed, a horse, or some other kind of creature once per day. At level 6, you gain the Aura of Protection, which shows a 10-foot aura which grants a bonus to saving throws. Any allies that are within 10 feet of you will gain a bonus to all saving throws equal to your charisma modifier. The importance of that charisma ability score being high is going to boost the effectiveness of your aura of protection. At level 9, you gain the ability to abjure foes, and you get to use your channel divinity to frighten multiple enemies for 1 minute, and frightened creatures generally can't move closer to the source of the fright, in which case this would be you. So for 1 minute, those foes aren't going to be able to willingly move closer towards you. But also on top of that, frightened creatures as part of the abjure foes are also only able to either move, take an action, or use a bonus action. As standard, a creature would be able to do all 3 of those on their turn, but this abjure foes ability limits them to only doing 1 of those on their turn, so very effective. Level 10, you unlock the Aura of Courage feature. So allies in your Aura of Protection, again 10 feet away from you, gain immunity to the frightened condition. So not only do they have a bonus to their saving throws, but they also cannot be frightened. At level 11, you unlock Radiant Strikes, which means that melee, weapons, and unarmed attacks deal a plus 1d8 radiant damage. At level 14, you gain Restoring Touch, which means that your lay on hands can remove conditions like blinded, charmed, deafened, frightened, paralyzed, or stunned, as well as the poison condition. At level 18, you get an aura expansion, which means that Aura of Protection, which was 10 feet, now increases to 30 feet radius. So anyone within 30 feet gains all of those benefits to their saving throws, and of course the immunity to being frightened as well. And then at level 19, you gain an epic boon. This is the last feature you get as a core paladin, but obviously at level 20 you gain a subclass feature as well. But as a core paladin at level 19, you gain an epic boon feat, and the recommended one is the Boon of True Sight, which gives you an ability score increase. So you get to increase 1 ability score of your choice by 1. This goes up to a maximum of 30. As with all epic boons, normally a mere mortal could only increase an ability score up to 20. But epic boons, because you're kind of approaching demigodhood at this point, you're actually able to push an ability score above 20 to get to a maximum of 30. And you also gain True Sight with a range of 60 feet. Now, if you're not familiar with True Sight, your vision is enhanced within a specific range. Within that range, your vision pierces through the following things. Darkness. You can see in both normal and magical darkness. Magical darkness normally is very hard to see through, normally needing magical light to do, but with True Sight you can look through it as normal. Invisibility. So you can see any creatures and objects that have the invisible condition upon them. You can also see through visual illusions. They just appear transparent to you, and you automatically succeed on any saving throws against them. You're also able to discern the true form of a creature or object that has been transformed by magic. You can also see into the ethereal plane. So great if you are trying to hunt down a night hag or something like that keeps moving and bamfing out of the material plane onto the ethereal plane as well. So those are all of the features that the core paladin class gets. Obviously you have your subclass features too, but those are specific to the oath that your paladin chooses. But now this is my favorite bit. These are the questions that you can ask yourself to really bring your paladin to life in those moments where you're not in combat, you are role-playing, and maybe you're in a bit of downtime, maybe you're in a bit of social interaction. These are the things that you can ask yourself to really bring the personality of your paladin to the fore and help inform the decisions that your paladin might make in any given situation. The first question is, what is the core belief or ideal that drives me? Whether it's devotion to a god, a strict code of justice, or a personal vow, this belief is something that should shape every decision that your character makes, or almost every decision. Is your core belief simply that you have devoted your life to your god and your god comes first? Is it that you have taken on that strict code of justice, or perhaps a code of your god? As a paladin, you don't necessarily need to be, at least in 2024, it doesn't need to be a devotion to a god. It could be just simply a promise. In this case, it could be that code of justice wherein you have devoted yourself to the city and you have promised that you are entirely devoted to serving the throne, for example. Or perhaps it's a personal vow. Perhaps you swore an oath of vengeance because your family were brutally killed by a band of cultists. And so you have vowed vengeance upon any and all cultists that don't align with your own beliefs. How did I take my oath and why? This kind of feeds into the previous question. Why did your character take your oath and in what manner did they do it? Was it a formal ceremony in a grand temple? Perhaps a whispered promise on a battlefield to a dying friend? Or a desperate vow in the face of tragedy? The circumstances in which the oath are taken, I think, are just as important as the actual oath itself. Because when you're not sure how your character would react in a situation based on the oath alone, knowing why they took the oath can certainly feed into making that decision a little bit easier. How do I view divine power? Do you see yourself as a chosen champion, a humble servant, or perhaps a relentless enforcer of divine will? You are acting as you wish to act because you are the champion. And your use of your divine power is yours to determine how you will use it. Are you a humble servant, however? Does what your God tells you to do supersede everything else? Or a relentless enforcer of divine will? Do you use the divine power to enforce your God's view onto others, perhaps? What does honor mean to me? Is honor about honesty, fairness, and mercy? Or do you take a more pragmatic view where the ends justify the means? Are you the sort of paladin that is going to tell everybody how they should behave based on your code of ethics? How do you react when you see corruption or evil? Do you seek redemption for wrongdoers? Do you mete out swift justice? Or do you follow the law to the letter? Are you the sort of paladin that when somebody commits a crime, you're going to say, okay, let's have an intervention, let's talk, because I want to know why you're doing this and I want to educate you on why it was wrong? Are you, however, the sort of paladin that the moment you see somebody doing anything wrong, you are going to carry out what your God believes to be justice? Are you going to follow the letter of the law? Are you the sort of person, the sort of paladin that is going to lean into the laws of the land and say, look, this is not my belief, this isn't how I would handle the situation, but the laws of the land say that by stealing that food, you need to lose a hand, and as a paladin, it is my duty to ensure that happens. Is that something that you might do as well? What does breaking my oath look like for me? What are the things that would push you into an internal or spiritual crisis? This is a great question to share your answer with your dungeon master. What is it that would really make them have to question whether or not to continue down the path of their oath or to break it? What is that one thing, perhaps, that might possibly encourage the paladin to abandon their oath? How does my paladin balance combat prowess and divine magic? We know two things about paladins. They're excellent warriors, and they also wield this divine magic. So how do they use both in tandem? Do they see magic as a tool of faith, a sacred gift, or simply another weapon in the arsenal? Could it be that your paladin does not, under any circumstances, wield their divine might in combat? Wouldn't that be interesting? Nope. I will not defile my God's magic with smiting foes, because my God believes that everybody should be redeemed. So I'm not going to use that divine magic. That's not what this power is for. This power is for helping people. Like that Jedi thing. A Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense, never for attack, for example. So where does your paladin sit? Are they willing to just mete out any divine magic just to smite anybody that they think is evil? or at least goes against their deity's wishes or goes against their oath? Or is this something that is going to be held back for special circumstances only? That could certainly be fun to play. The reluctant paladin. What kind of leader am I? Paladins, because they are rare, often lead on the battlefield, and in other places too. They can often be found in political scenarios where they are influencing, they're like the king's guard, if you will, or they might be influencing the king, perhaps. They may be captain of the king's guard, and so they might have to lead others. So what kind of leader is your character? Do they inspire with their words? Do they prefer to lead by example and let their actions speak? Or do they demand unwavering discipline from those that follow them? Could it be that your paladin is expectant that if the rest of the party are going to be fighting alongside them, that the paladin expects that not only must the paladin themselves follow the oath, but it is expected that everybody else would too? What sort of friction might that cause amongst the party members? Or simply, does your paladin like to inspire the others to do what is right? How does my oath influence my relationships? Are you open to friendships, love, and camaraderie? Or does your devotion to your cause create distance? Again, I think of Jedi here, where the Jedi are not meant to be in love. They're not supposed to have attachments because it gets in the way of their judgment. Could that be the case? And so you're always at a distance, you don't get too close to people. Or actually, is it that your God's beliefs and tenets of your oath are such that you should keep people close and protect loved ones? What personal sacrifices have I made for my oath? Have you had to give up family, power, personal desires, or even your own happiness to uphold your ideals? We talked earlier as part of the narrative of the player's handbook for paladins that they'll often, once they take their oaths, leave their old lives behind. Is that something you've had to do? Have you been given opportunity that you've had to turn down because your oath says that it is forbidden? Have you perhaps even fallen in love and had to leave that love behind because you had a greater cause, perhaps, to follow? And with all of those, one of the really important things is, how does your character feel? Both consciously and I think subconsciously. Perhaps the aftermath of having to make these sacrifices has lingered and left some emotional scars. How do they react to things? Perhaps they have some insecurities that might be worth exploring at the table. So those are all of the questions that you can ask yourself to try and bring your paladin to life in both roleplay situations for the questions and, of course, mechanically as well, how the actual class functions. I'm always keen to hear answers to some of the questions and what sort of characters people have been able to come up with based off of some of these questions. So if you have created a paladin, gone through some of these questions, do leave a comment below. You'll also find a link below as well to the worksheet. There you can print that out. If you prefer to do things by hand, you can print that out and fill that in and answer some of the questions for yourself and put that into your player's journal at your table. But I hope you found all those questions helpful. I hope you found this video useful as a whole. And if you did, don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel.